接下来我们跟 W 交手了，然后这空地回来了嘛，所以我觉得我们应该不能那个大龙就 B 团，大龙那里不能团，因为我怕被抢。然后其他对线和什么的，我觉得没什么问题吧，因为最近我们打斗，我们的就打的都很好，我们所有选手都打得很好，状态都很好，所以我觉得对线上应该没什么问题。我们只要小心那个大龙，应该我们会赢。
Always great to hear from Doinby saying his greatest enemy right now is probably the Baron, and the team is actually playing pretty well, which I agree with. You know, Rogue Warriors have looked better and better. I'd say at the start of the split we had some questions because they were meant to be the super team, but they didn't really show that to us for the first like 2 or 3 series, but they definitely start to come into their own. Now the question is, can they actually do it against some of the heavy hitters coming out of the West Conference, because you have immediately WE, so good luck.
Yeah, no time for warm-up, just straight into the frying pan there. I don't know, I still actually have some questions about Rogue Warriors. Yeah, they took down their series over JD, but it wasn't as convincing as it should have been given their collective experience, and it was actually their superior veteran calls around monster objectives like the Baron and the Elder Dragon that allowed them to take the series rather than them naturally winning in lane phase. I mean, that game of Mouse just getting dove about 7 times and toppling comes back to me, so Doinby says he feels fine in their lane phase. Maybe gonna pump the brakes there and be like, maybe not.
That's true, but they are also facing down WE, who are coming off their own loss against EDG coming into this one, and WE, it seems like they are starting to get exploited now in terms of how many strategies that they have, how many champions they have in those individual pools, and definitely EDG, because of how dynamic they were in that series, were able to exploit that. I do wonder how Rogue Warriors we would do now and how dynamic they are to actually exploit those weaknesses.
And that's the thing, it's the key word of like dynamic, because you flip that to the other side, and again, I'm looking at Rogue Warriors, I'm like, your top laner plays what now? Gangplank, and that's really about it? Mouse has never been forced off that champion. Flawless has played Lee Sin 6 times and is undefeated on the champion, so while I agree with you that Team WE, one of their biggest weaknesses has been the fact that they only play about 2 compositions and you can limit their champion pool, they become uncomfortable and start to crumble, but Rogue Warriors, I think you could do the exact same thing to them.
They are very much I would like to say, a momentum-based team, especially when you have a player like Doinby. Like, the guy was just going off. As soon as he got that win the other day, he was dancing all over the place. But once Rogue Warriors get going, they can definitely steamroll a series.
And again, where this replay is kicking in is the fact that JD actually initiated that skirmish there and then were caught off guard by the Tahm Kench. And most of these replays will literally be them just punishing mistakes of teams overstepping their boundaries, and then a Gangplank ultimate comes through. In that case, it was the Corki Valkyrie into the backline. They're just immediately punished. But like you said, momentum-based team is correct, because again, if that's an in-zone dance if I've ever seen one, and Doinby is pumped after beating his previous team. So while it is, you know, directly into the fire for cross-conference that they face Team WE right out of the gate, I think Doinby is ready now more than ever.
Yeah, they actually are riding momentum following that series coming into this one against WE. And if we talk about playstyle as well, RW rather, very much play around looking towards bot side. Like the fact that SMLZ now exists, like Doinby was the player who was just sat in the mid lane and felt like he had to do all the carrying. Now he has members around the rest of the map who can do some of the carrying for him, but he's facing down WE, who get most of their advantage out of the jungle. So I do wonder how much focus is put towards the mid lane here on Doinby, or whether it's actually put to the other power points in the team, such as SMLZ in the bottom lane.
I mean, that carry point has been flawless, although I agree with you. I think that they should turn that focus down to SMLZ, especially because Mystic and Ben are not playing up to form right now. Team WE have kind of said it over and over in a lot of their interviews that they're warming back up, that they're trying to find their footing again, that they understand that they're not playing at full capacity, but just be patient, they will deliver. But they haven't delivered yet, and Mystic and Ben have fallen down 2v2 time and time again in their last series. So I actually think if you just draft a winning matchup against them, just like we saw iBoy and Mako, you can punish Mystic and Ben quite heavily right now, and Team WE don't really know how to pivot into another lane. She's really the only performing member right now on the team, maybe other than Condi. Condi and Shea are strong, but 957 showing weaknesses, Mystic and Ben are falling apart.
I think that's the key point with WE right now, is because how many styles do they actually have to show? Like, if they're constantly saying that give us more time, we'll look better, give us another couple of weeks, we haven't seen anything that they can extrapolate on. We've only seen very few compositions. We've seen fast push out from them. We've seen, like, going back to the Worlds composition they had with a new 8.1 twist, but we haven't necessarily seen more things that they can diversify from.
And part of that does come from the available tape that we have of them playing with Condi. I mean, unfortunately, Condi didn't start the split with them. It was Melon, so they've just kind of been to a slow start where other teams had kind of a 3-week head start on them, and they're about to go into cross-conference. So I don't blame Team WE too much for this, but you know, it's cross-conference, nose to the grind. You're only going to get one opportunity to pick up this type of win over Rogue Warriors, and it kind of needs to be now or never.
But it goes back to our overarching storyline here, our narrative that, like, WE, they're part of the heavy hitters lineup, right? Like, the West Conference is meant to be the heavy hitters. They're meant to be the ones who are, like, the raid bosses that East has to go up against. But if they start dropping games here, then they can suddenly start plummeting down the standings, because it's not like they have a nice blanket right now being at the top of the standings like EDG were after yesterday's victory. They actually need to get these wins, need to get them right now.
Yeah, currently sitting 3-3, so right in the middle of the table, whereas Rogue Warriors are actually on the other side of that and sitting near the top of the table. And that's what's interesting to me. We just saw that RNG and Billy RNG pulled it out, so, you know, the East is hitting back. Is this now for the 1-2 good night that the East Conference just takes out the West Conference tonight?
It's a bit of a godsend that Chinese New Year is coming up, and for a lot of the big teams, they seem to get rejuvenated after Chinese New Year. We saw that very much last year was the case, especially for RNG. Looked like a different team. But we take a look at WE's roster, it's always going to be the same. If everyone can play, they definitely will. 957, Condi, Shie, Mystic, and Ben. The band is all back together.
And we do have a special occasion. If this game, or excuse me, if this series goes to all 3 games, it will be the 100th competitive matches that this 5-man roster have played together. So Team WE, we talk about one of their greatest strengths is the synergy that they all have, because this roster hasn't changed for so many splits.
Actually pretty crazy. We were talking about Caveman and Long the other day playing 100 games together. It's actually going to be the whole of WE with Mouse, Flawless, Joinby, SMLZ, and Kahlua going to be the team facing them today on Rogue Warriors. Now, as you said, this team is actually doing pretty well in terms of the standings. Has started to pick up a lot of wins in the Eastern Conference, and now they're looking at WE as well.
Yeah, started a little bit slow, but they are known as the revenge team or the super team, and it's because they have those diamonds in the rough, the SMLZs, the Mouse, the Doinbys, the Flawlesses, and they brought them together. Now, where this team's strength lies, though, is they don't have the superstar talent to just brute force victories. They need to outthink opponents, which is why their matchup against Team WE is so interesting, because we always used to say that Team WE were the sum of their parts. Their strength is their ability to play as that 5-man unit, to have those creative strategies that they're able to execute on. Rogue Warriors are in a very similar boat. So I think today we're going to kind of figure out who is the better coin flip team.
Well, I feel like they already have a supporting argument towards that, because they faced JD already, and we said JD was very much a team who are pretty smart, they are pretty cerebral. The way that they've won games hasn't just been by, like, ramming their face into a team. They've actually thought about their macro plays, and RW beat that team. So it feels like this is now the next test, but we know that they can play in that way.
But they did it through JD's mistakes around the Baron specifically, and Team WE should not make those same mistakes. We heard Doinby in his SOT, they're not going to play around the Baron, which, if that's the case, then they're probably not going to win the game, because that's actually what won them their series against JD Gaming.
Yeah, that is true. WE will be obviously a much harder opponent. It just goes back to what we were saying about WE, though. It doesn't feel like they're still playing at full capacity. So for a team like RW, especially before we hit the break, this is the perfect time for them to pick up this win. I would say, like, if you give them another 2 weeks, WE, to actually start evolving, get more strategy under their belt, and change how they're playing, that becomes a very different beast to try and defeat today.
100% agree. From what I want to see tonight, though, is I want to see Team WE go back to one of their older strategies, specifically their Caitlyn one. They chose the Xayah over the Caitlyn last time around. I think the fast push strategy will absolutely destroy Rogue Warriors. They're only successful in post 5v5s, and I don't want to see Team WE just assume that they have the stronger 5v5 and take this to a 50-50 game against Rogue Warriors. In this at 25 minutes, because Rogue Warriors have shown that they can't put up a fight in lane phase.
Yeah, don't allow Rogue Warriors to get to the point where they're strong. We'll see if they do that as we head into Champions League, because we are going to send it over to the Caster Twins to take us away.
Thank you very much, Pulse and Frosker, and I'm Matt Fisher. Joining me is Clement Chu. We're about to get into the second series of today. It's going to be Team WE taking on Rogue Warriors. These two teams ended the first split of regular conference pretty well. Team WE currently 3-3, Rogue Warriors 4-2. So you'd have to think it's a fairly even match going into this.
Yeah, both teams in that playoff contention range. And like the Des did say, WE had kind of a slow start. So the way I see these two teams, they're actually very evenly matched at this current time.
On top of that, WE have since brought back Condi and have been looking fantastic since then, except for their defeat against EDG recently. Rogue Warriors, the revenge team, as Frosker was calling them on the desk, have looked really strong recently as well. And the desk has touched on the weaknesses of these two teams, Clement, and Indiana has come out and said that She does not want WE to take this to that coin flip team fight late game, because it really does seem like if they're going to play the way they have been, these two teams will take it to late game.
I do feel that way as well, but however, I do feel like WE is the stronger late game team fight team. If you look at Rogue Warriors, what they should start to do is they should start to use the advantages they have in Flawless and Doinby. Doinby is allowing them to win a lot of red side games, still undefeated on that red side, all because of Doinby getting those last pick counter picks. And if it does go late game, I don't feel like Rogue Warriors has the coordination as a new team in the LPL to really take down WE.
Well, we'll have to see if these two teams do take it to that late game that we predict they would try to do. We're already into picks and bans for the first match here. As always, Flawless is not going to be able to pick up his Lee Sin. He had a really good run on the champion with people not taking it away from him. And Team WE ban out the Gangplank as well as Kog'Maw away from Rogue Warriors. Nah, Galio and Azir, the three bans that come out from Rogue Warriors. And Mystic is going to be picking up Kalista.
Both sides are trying to force the hands of the opponents. They're banning away things that they've picked so much. The Gangplank, 6 games in Mouse has played, and Flawless, 6-0 on that Lee Sin. So taking away a lot of key champions, and WE also giving us a new look, going for that early game tempo pick in the Kalista.
Which is surprising because we talk about how Mystic, doesn't really play a couple of champions. Kalista is one of the champions that has not pulled out recently, especially. However, with all these target bans going through on both sides, with the Galio, with the 3 bans we've seen from Team WE, it leaves picks like this open, which is going to be the Jarvan first picked up for Flawless in the jungle, and probably going to be Ezreal as well.
The go-to champion after Lee Sin has been banned. We've seen this Rogue Warrior composition. What they like to do on the red side is pick a very safe AD carry, pick a strong jungler, and then save those counter picks for Doinby to make an impact in the early to mid game.
And again, another strong pick left open is going to be Zoe. We'll have to see if Team WE decide to lock that one in. Rogue Warriors could always respond with the Tahm Kench, which we commonly seen paired up with the Ezreal when it's picked up for SMLZ. But we'll have to keep track of that. Zoe, we saw it played earlier today. It has still been very popular internationally and still an incredibly strong AP carry in the mid lane.
Really forces a lot of macro plays that your opponents won't be able to expect. If she does snowball, she will snowball the entire game, not only her lane. She is also a very good Zoe player. However, I do think Doinby has a couple of picks up his sleeves. Things like the Malzahar, things like the Kassadin, he can look to pick into the Zoe, and he locks it in right there.
There you go, Malzahar to try and shut down Zoe in the mid lane. Picked up by Sia as we head into the second ban phase. Sejuani was the lock-in as the jungler of choice for Condi. This is going to be the go-to tank jungler in the current meta.
It's really interesting to see how these two develop the draft. WE still have their top laner to pick. So far, 957 has been put on a lot of Nars. That has been taken away from him. We don't really know what his second go-to champion is. And in this matchup, when we were talking about not punishing the opponents, I feel like Mouse has kind of is on the weaker side of mechanics, and 957 doesn't seem to have doesn't seem to be having a very good split himself. So I feel like that matchup might go into a tank matchup and kind of just be a toss-up.
Well, Mouse is well known for his tanks top side of the map. Has been picking up a few more carries in there, especially the Gangplank, which is banned out in this match. But what is it about 957? Because he has not had the best of splits, because he was the top laner last year.
It does seem like he's lacking the confidence to go into things like the Camille, like the Vladimir. These are picks that he rarely touches, instead favoring the Ornn and the Gnar much more heavily. So he is kind of a role player, basically. He plays those tanks and he plays those initiations for the team, but not really for his own lane. And in this meta, we are seeing guys like Jinnu, like the Shy, really take off. So the 957 hasn't been able to hop onto that train, and we're seeing this from the draft as well. Rogue Warriors not banning anything away from that top lane, while it's been left up to WE to ban things away from Mouse.
Instead, it's going to be Rogue Warriors that target out the support pool at Ben. Taking away the Tahm Kench, which we know Rogue Warriors like to play in this team composition, but Braum denied as well, which signals the Ornn ban coming out from Team WE as their final ban. Alistar, however, locked in for Killua in the bot lane.
This is a beautiful hard pinch that the red side can do. They ban out 2 supports and pick the last good melee support left on the table, the Alistar. This is why red side draft is so potent, because you can ban those 2 supports out and then pick another one, which doesn't leave much to Kalista aside from the Taric.
We could get Taric, we could get Shen, but those are the only 2 that really come to mind. Leona is a possibility to be thrown in as a fringe pick. However, Vladimir is the first lock-in for Team WE, so we have seen 957 champion in the top lane, and it's not going to be Doinby that gets to counterpick this time for Rogue Warriors. It's going to go to Mouse on the top side of the map.
Definitely. Doinby has already taken his counter pick in the Malzahar. Now we can talk about things that go well into the Vladimir. Actually, Ilawi is one of the better matchups, and it's one that Mouse, we've actually seen him play already.
However, we get Thresh locked in the bottom lane for Ben to pair up with the Callista. A very old combo, a very common combo that used to be very heavily picked when these two champions are in the meta. We don't see Thresh too much anymore, but still very strong, very dangerous.
So the Thresh pick is, I understand it, but it's kind of a weaker pick in the current meta, just because compared to other champions that use the Aftershock, Thresh doesn't really get much out of the Keystone. He gets bullied out of lane quite easily, and Alistar isn't the best matchup. Though, however, this is still the Kalista Thresh, so they probably will still have lane priority. The last counter pick for Mouse right here, Cho'Gath, which we've seen Ray pick up into this exact matchup into Vladimir.
We saw it picked up in the last series as well by Tatai, and we've seen what it can do. Even going into close to late game, still puts a lot of pressure on the Vladimir, still very good into the laning dominance of Vladimir, and it really comes down to that sustain that both champions bring in the early game.
What's so interesting about this draft is that both teams are actually letting go of what we traditionally associate them as being the strongest at, the team fight phase of the game. So we have Team Rogue Warriors picking up Jarvan and Malzahar, things that they can snowball the early mid-game with. And on WE's front, they're actually letting go of the Xayah, letting go of the super late game, and opting into a very strong bottom lane in Kalista and Thresh themselves.
Indiana said that themselves. Indiana wants this, or Frost going to say, wants this game to be an early dominant game from Team WE. Show a different playstyle, show that they can bring back forms of their old compositions to take it to Rogue Warriors early. Rogue Warriors, they've drafted something very similar here today, and as we expected this to go into a late game brawl, suddenly the team compositions suggest otherwise, Clement.
Exactly. A lot of it is going to revolve around the bottom lane 3v3 scenario that involves Condi and also Flawless on the same table. And in that sort of sense, I actually feel like Rogue Warriors have the upper hand just because Flawless is on a more aggressive early jungler in the Jarvan.
And you have to think how safe these two bottom lanes are. Kalista and Thresh both can save each other when they're out of position. One with the ultimate, one with the lantern, but not pre-6. Same from the opposite side of the map. Ezreal's a very slippery champion with the Arcane Shift, and you have Alistar, a very tanky champion once he hits level 6 as well. So I have to see if any of these junglers put focus towards the bot lane before those level 6 ultimates come up and online.
A lot more fans for WE there. We can see the signs. The sign that the cameraman has been showing for WE is, I want to forget, but I always remember, which harks back to the days when they won the IPL 5, when WE was the top team in the world. And you can still feel that kind of energy in their fans.
A very well-known team, one of the oldest teams in the LPL. On top of that, this roster of 957, Condi, Sia, Mystic, and Ben have been together for so long. In fact, if this game goes to a best-of-3 series, it would be their 100th match played together as a team, which is pretty huge.
There's not many teams that have that time to get their synergy together. We first saw Promise in this WE team all the way back in 2015 when they were playing in the IEMs. And at that time, they beat the Rocks Tigers, which was a huge move that no one really expected. From then on, it's only gotten better for WE.
On the flip side, they're going against Rogue Warriors, a relatively new roster, as we like to describe them, diamonds in the rough. Players from here and there that people tend to know put together into a team and have been kicking start this split of the LPL very strong. In fact, with their recent win over Doinby's previous team, Jindong. You know, we saw the excitement from Doinby. We saw how happy he was after that victory. It was a big pickup for them as well.
Love the way that contracts with the way SMLZ handles his attitude, because there was no emotion whatsoever on that man. Flawless actually taking the first 3 camps and going back into lane for an early gank.
This is what we kind of expected. Pre-6, these two lanes are very gankable, not as safe as we expect. However, WE do have the level 2 advantage at the moment. Rogue Warriors have not hit level 2 yet, so it's 2 level 1s against 2 level 2s. Flawless going for that gank. They do hit it, forcing both flashes very early in the bottom lane.
And this is the pathing that we've seen Flawless do in his previous games. He will start the blue side, let the enemy bottom lane push in, and then clear his full side, come in for the gank. However, this does leave his top side of the jungle open to counter to jungle steals.
Well, lucky for him, he's up against a Sejuani, not incredibly well known for her invades, but she's going to do just that, head over towards the red buff on Rogue Warrior's side. Checking in with the top side of the map, Mouse against 957. Vladimir having the upper hand early on. Cho'Gath really needs access to the minion wave to start sustaining himself.
Knows that Mystic doesn't have the flash, goes in for an engage.
Mystic gets some good damage onto Killua though, trading back quite nicely. Condi's still going in for some counter jungling here. Has already taken away red buff, now starting on the Raptor camp. Doimi's also being sent down here to help out with Flawless. They're going for a dive here, Common?
It's a 4v2 without minion dematerializer. Such a fast timing.
And they're going to look for it. There goes
No
Killua.
flashes.
He's going to tank the turret aggro first. First blood picked up by Flawless, and it's actually a flawless dive coming out from the Rogue Warriors.
Beautiful execution, great taking coming out from Killua. No one falls down from Rogue Warriors, and they don't even expend the bottom lane flashes. This means that this lane is going to go from bad to worse.
Mystic does have Unsealed Spellbook, could change to teleport, but why would you teleport into this? You just die again. This could potentially be the earliest turret in the match. They're not going to take it down just yet. Instead, go back and reset. But my goodness, Rogue Warriors with the early game strategy.
And Doinby was able to do that without any minion dematerializers. He was simply allowed to push that lane and roam to the bottom side without any member from WE hindering that.
And he's up against minion dematerializer picked up by Sia. He should not be allowed to do that. Malzahar, yes, well known for the pushing power. But still.
WE just completely failed to read that as a possibility. They knew that the Flawless was at the red buff of Condi, but they didn't expend any resources to stop that. And we have to question, are WE familiar with playing with a strong bot lane? Or is it they just want their bot lane to continuously scale? Because this was a huge oversight on their part.
And again, going into this, we knew that both teams had their weaknesses, especially around the early game. We were harping on this in the analyst list. We were harping on this before we got into this match. But, I mean, even SMLZ thinks that he has Gathering Storm. He thinks this might still go into late game.
Yeah,
but still,
definitely has the same read we had.
This is relatively unexpected. We knew that this could happen, and that's the way to target the Champions League from both these teams. And Rogue Warriors was a pretty good execution on that.
It was very smooth, and this play was if you're from WE, you kind of have to expect that. Once we saw the Doinby leave lane, we instantly knew that was a 4v2, but somehow WE did not catch that message. There's two members who were still there while the lane was pushing in. They didn't send any members, and weirdly enough, Xie was playing on the left side of the lane for the most part.
However, as the dust settles here, Clement, Rogue Warriors pick up a small lead for themselves. It's just about 400-500 gold, but you have to think that the big advantage that they currently have is in that bottom lane outer turret. Left with next to no health. Where do the Rogue Warriors really go from here? Because they've set themselves up for a nice early game. Now they have to execute.
There's two things they can do now. Is one, that they can scale Infinite into late game. They do have the better late game composition. And let's just watch this gank here.
Oh, Mouse flashing away. He's fine. Burns the summoner spell just to be safe.
Going back to my previous point, Rogue Warriors do have the better late game, so they can infinitely scale and just make sure that Zoe doesn't get too far ahead. Or the second thing they can do is they can continue to punish this bot lane.
Which just seems like what they're trying to do. They were walking over a couple of wards. You can already see Mystic and Ben backing away from this. Mystic even swapped out his summoner spell for teleport, and that's going to be a big minion wave denied by SMLZ. Level 5 on the Ezreal, level 4 on the Alistar. Both Mystic and Ben are a level behind these two.
And this might be one of the fastest early towers to go down. All of the gold actually goes on SMLZ as well. Killua with very good positioning there.
6 minutes and 40 seconds into the match, and SMLZ is going to be able to pick up the first turret of this game. He's Ezreal as well. He still has Kleptomancy. It's still patch 8.1. It hasn't been nerfed yet, so he's going to accelerate really quickly into this. In fact, he even went back to pick up a tier. A Sheen, not a tier. So he showed that he wanted to be aggressive early.
It's interesting to see where the bot lane from Rogue Warrior heads out from now, because this bot lane is pushed in very far. Unless they have full jungle vision, they're not going to be able to go back to that lane. What's interesting is WE is actually deciding not to hold on to that lane to further scale. They're probably afraid of other points on the map being pressured too hard, and are opting in to push this full wave back out again.
Just taking stock of things now. 1,000 gold is the lead for Rogue Warriors early into the match. Doinby's going to be able to pick up his blue buff, head back into the mid lane. We haven't seen too much top lane action, as it's just been a farm fest between the Cho'Gath as well as the Vladimir. Vladimir getting the upper hand, especially thanks to the gank that came out from Sia to help him out, burning the flash from Cho'Gath. All the action and all the eyes have been on this bottom lane as well as Flawless in the jungle. Haven't seen too much from Condi, but Jarvan has made so much happen for Rogue Warriors. Team WE really need to find a way to put themselves back on even footing against Rogue Warriors.
The next big point on the map we really have to look for is Condi with his Sejuani ultimate, because he wants to punish with that ult, catch someone on Rogue Warriors out, and try to stop their pushing tempo. Because Rogue Warriors are just too far ahead right now. They're even controlling this entire section of the jungle.
Well, he's got step 1, which is hit level 6. Faster than Flawless, so has the ultimate available, but Rogue Warriors with control over the bottom side of the map move into the jungle. They don't get the Raptor camp, but Flawless is looking to try and take red buff away.
It seems like WE are opting to wait for that level 6 from Mystic as well, so they have a backup plan if their initial engage fails. They can pull someone back with Fate's Call and make that play just that much safer.
On top of that, Flawless with the red buff steal has been able to hit level 6 himself. Unfortunately, Dragon RNG is not too kind to Rogue Warriors. It's going to be a Cloud Dragon that spawns first, so they don't opt to go towards that objective yet, but they're still very aggressive inside the red side jungle of Team WE, not giving them any room to breathe.
And now they can actually control the minion wave and deny a lot of farm from Mystic. You're seeing Mystic sharing the Krugs with Condi, which is going to put him further behind.
Already quite accelerated in the bottom lane as early as you can see. Still the starting items picked up by Kalista against a Sheen, a pickaxe, a Tyr. There's no way Mystic can pick a fight against Ezreal at the moment. Flawless moves over towards Cloud Dragon. Is going to be able to pick this one up for his team. Just a small advantage being picked up to go with the 2,000 gold lead they've already acquired.
This is definitely going to be a pre-20-minute Muramana coming out from SMLZ. That mid-game is going to be so scary from Rogue Warriors. They're going to have control of one side of the jungle. They're going to be able to fly in with Doinby and Flawless, and also SMLZ will be there to assist with a lot of damage on his own.
That's not something you see every day. 957 using his ultimate to trim the minion wave so he can go back to base, it seems.
That's
Mouse will
a
stick
very
around and
good
farm up.
prediction. 957 definitely knows that this rotation is coming in from Rogue Warriors, so he uses his ultimate to clear the wave.
And he's able to do just that. Denies Mouse from going back to base early. However, will be that rotation that comes out from Rogue Warriors. To match that, Team WE will send Kalista into the top lane. Thresh is already roaming around the top side of the map to help out with Condi. But Kalista's only be able to pick up her Berserker Greaves and Vamp Sector, whereas SMLZ has the main components of his core item ready to go.
We've talked about how Kalista and Thresh are such a powerful duo, but that's no longer the case in this point. There's no point in this game where Kalista is actually going to have a good matchup into SMLZ. And that begs the question is, how are WE going to teamfight when their AD carry is actually the one that's weaker?
Well, they were trying to focus middle just say. See ultimate thrown out by Condi. Flash was used by Doinby and Sia barely missing the sleep. Instead sends a Voidling to sleep instead.
Does get the flash out from Doinby, but very good use of the Voidlings right there. Blocks a skill shot for himself.
Doinby seems to be fairly comfortable. Yes, was forced to blow his summon a spell, but keeping up in farm against the Zoe besides the 10 CS that Sia was able to pick up during the roam down into the bottom lane. Sia, pretty afraid himself though, Chloe, and he's gone back to base and picked up a QSS as the first item for Zoe.
He definitely knows what's coming up, because in the middle game, in the middle phase of the game, what's going to happen is Doinby is going to be on the roam and looking for those picks. A huge reason you pick Malzahar into the Zoe is because the Zoe can't run away from you. She has to come back with her portal jump, so it's actually fairly easy to make catches on her.
And Rogue Warriors have not made any proactive attempt to target down this mid lane just yet. Instead, all eyes again focused on shutting down Mystic and Ben. Doinby even rotating up towards top side of the map. Team WE will spot out this rotation with a couple of wards they place down the river. And again, Mouse and 957, they're still on an island. Still have no impact in this game. Ben will leash Sia back towards the top side of the map to force this into a 4-on-4 with the turret on this side and a big chunk coming out from Zoe to push Flawless back.
This is the 4v4 that could make WE come back into the game. So you see Rogue Warriors are very cautious about this position, backing off as soon as Flawless takes that that paddle star right there. They understand that if all of the WE members are here and their ultimates are up, there could be a chance of a comeback, so to speak. So they're playing it slow. They just want a little bit of chip damage here and are testing if WE are going to make their move.
On top of it, you'd have to expect with the items that SML and Z have picked up, if Team WE face off against Rogue Warriors in the river, it could be a big fight for Rogue Warriors because they just have that gold advantage, but the turret is what they're trying to defend and what Rogue Warriors really want to take down. They've already got one. They're trying to push for the next one. It's just been proving a little bit difficult for them for now.
WE are very Rogue Warriors are a very patient team. They do understand that in this type of matchup, they have the scaling advantage. So they don't really need to push things. And on the flip side, it is WE that has to disrupt Rogue Warriors' tempo. So they're going to have to look for opportunities whenever they can.
We've already seen them try to disrupt the tempo in the mid lane, trying to get the gank onto Doinby. He's still running Unsealed Spellbook though, so his summoner spells come back up quite fast. They need to find a way to try and shut down Rogue Warriors in one way or another. Sia's still doing fine in the mid lane. It's really this top side of the map. The bottom lane, after the creative path coming out for Flawless, the good ganks that came down there in a very early dive. But, as you mentioned, WE turtling just fine, and they're comfortable to stall out this game. They're comfortable to take it late.
The question for me is WE is known as a kiting teamfight composition. They're very good in that late game 5v5, but now they have to face a different type of team fight where they have to go in and assassinate SMLZ. They're not going to have a better backline compared to Rogue Warriors, so they're going to be the one that have to play the engage side of the team fights. Are they capable of really doing that? We haven't really seen 957 really shine on his own on this Vladimir so far this split. How are they going to do it?
On top of that, SMLZ's already been able to pick up a couple of core items. Mana Immune complete, as well as the Iceborne Gauntlet. He gets a good shot and gets into the top lane pretty quickly, using True Shot Barrage to trim the minion wave. Mystic did not swap out for Teleport this time around, so they have some free time to get good chip damage on this turret, and Sheen will make short work of that.
It's a good play from Rogue Warriors. They're threatening the 4-man die, but at the same time taking the Herald. So splitting up their resources, but having good effects on both sides.
Very patient play coming up from Rogue Warriors, making sure Mouse and 957 are in a stalemate, making sure that Doinby stays safe in that mid lane despite the pressure coming up from Condi, and taking their time with top lane turret, taking their time to set up that Rift Herald play. Now the next step for them is actually use that Rift Herald, and there can only be one place you really throw that down, Clement. They're looking towards the mid lane.
Definitely looking for that mid, want to chunk Xia before they do it.
And forcing it as well, trying to lock him down. QSS is available and instantly used. Now Team WE look for that team fight. Killua's going to jump in as well. Doinby uses his stopwatch to kick things off. SMLZ joining the fight on top of that. Good damage on Ben. Flawless jumps underneath the turret. One final attack, not enough. Stopwatch to drop the aggro.
Face call comes in.
Mystic going to try and pull him back, stop him from falling. But Doinby, they're going to throw down the Rift Tail to jump the fight. Condi's going to fall. SMLZ gets that kill. Flawless still up, and it's going to be Rogue Warriors pushing through the mid lane.
That was a beautiful stopwatch to switch the tower aggro over to Mouse's side, and Flawless somehow manages to keep himself alive even though he took a Sleepy Trouble Bubble to the face.
On top of that, Rogue Warriors a massive swing in this match, taking it slow, then explosive in the mid lane, using those stopwatches fantastically in the team fight.
And we've heard Crown talk about the Zoe matchup. He thinks that Zoe is actually not an uncontrollable pick because if Zoe falls behind, then she doesn't do enough damage and she doesn't provide enough utility for your team. And we're kind of seeing that happen in this game right now. The Zoe is, if she's not able to go into the enemy jungle, what is she really doing?
And she's not necessarily behind in terms of her lane opponent. Still 0-0-0 with more CS than Doinby. However, Rogue Warriors picked up 3 turrets. They got the Rift Herald, they got a Cloud Dragon for themselves. They've opened up the map. And Sia is forced to pick up a QSS nice and early, which doesn't help out with her damage very much.
The next move for Rogue Warriors is really controlling the top side of the map. Oh, never mind. It's actually 16 minutes, so the Baron isn't even up yet. This game was going so fast that I actually kind of forgot how early this is.
Meanwhile, they're trying to collapse on the Coney. That's a flash over the wall coming out from Doinby. They lock him down, pops his stopwatch, but is it too little too late? Does have his friends coming over to help him out, but Doinby picks up the kill. 957, however, is going to get some revenge for his team. Sleepy Trouble puts Flawless to sleep. Ben will pick up the second one, and Team WE fight back.
Rogue Warriors going super aggressive on a 4v2. Doinby actually expends his flash at the start of the fight. They managed to get 1 kill, but that was completely not worth it for Rogue Warriors. If you look at 957, he's able to pick up a kill and an assist. And this might be how they deal with that late game Ezreal.
Ben really making the best use of his time at the moment. He's no use standing beside Mystic while he's walking back to lane or free farming in the top side of the map. Instead, working with his team. Already picked up the Moby Boots as early as he could to roam around the map. We get to see that again. Very aggressive from Rogue Warriors.
Doinby uses the flash. He must know that Sejuani still has the stopwatch, but still goes for that play. If you look at the map, 4 members from WE funneling in before Cho'Gath can really do anything, and they just give up 2 kills to the member that they don't want to give. 957 on his Vladimir.
The saving grace for Rogue Warriors is Ben picks up one of the Thresh, but still, it's a play against the flow that Rogue Warriors have been able to pick up and dictate for themselves. They lead with about 2,500 gold in their advantage, going for their second Cloud Dragon of the match.
And sometimes Flawless and Doinby do make these super aggressive plays that don't go into their favor. This is one of the big weaknesses that Rogue Warrior has compared to more established teams like EDG that might play it a bit slower, going for a dive on.
Aggressive dive on SMLZ, flashes over the wall, Arcane shifts back in. Condi's going to try and move up here, but again, big aggressive plays from Team WE while the rest of Rogue Warriors on the bottom side of the map.
This gold lead is still not enough for Rogue Warriors to really feel safe. If it comes to a 5v5 teamfight, WE still have the chance to completely wipe Rogue Warriors. So this means that WE actually are not that far behind in the map, because if they try to force a 5v5, Rogue Warriors is going to have to take it super carefully.
And curious to kind of see why is it Rogue Warriors have to take it super carefully, because coming into this, we expected this one to go late. We expected Rogue Warriors to be fairly evenly matched against Team WE in the terms of they both have very similar weaknesses. With a gold lead, would you not be confident as Rogue Warriors right now being, you know what, we could still take a fight against Team WE?
I feel like it's just the kills handed over to guys like Vladimir and also Kalista hitting her power spike as well. There is a lot of engage on WE that can instantly kill members on Rogue Warriors. So what that means is that you can't really set camps in Vision. So let's say if you want to 5-man stack on a brush, if W somehow use a blue trinket, find you there, and then all in with your AoE, you could still lose that fight despite being up 4,000 gold, because WE's composition can instantly wipe members.
We've already seen them turn around one team fight and try and force a couple more. One in the mid lane, one on the top side of the map. Still 4-2 in terms of kills. Rogue Warriors still have a small lead for themselves, but they've expended the Rift Tail. We saw them go for the big team fight in the mid lane. Most of the stopwatches have been broken. In fact, it's only Mouse as well as Kahlua on the side of Rogue Warriors that still have theirs. However, for Team WE, there's still some big stopwatches available on all 3 of their carries. Zoe, Kalista, Vladimir all have theirs, all waiting for that big crucial team fight to try and swing the game back in their favor.
W understand their predicament. They know that if they take a 5v5 around the Baron, they actually have a fairly decent chance of coming out ahead. So they are contesting Rogue Warriors despite having a very large gold deficit.
And that seems to be where they would want to go for that next team fight. Yes, Rogue Warriors have Mouse. He has the Feast available to get the extra smite damage for Flawless and stop his steal coming out from Condi. But this whole time, if Team W can just delay them, 957 is going to get stronger and stronger, Clement. He's just on an island in the bottom lane, farming all by himself.
Like we've said, Rogue Warriors still does have the scaling composition. They can take things slows and kind of sit back and just wait for the late game to really opt into the team fights. But we keep on mentioning the power points from WE because they can look for those open engages if Rogue Warriors miss positions.
So it's good to look at the opposite side of the table, where the power points coming out for Rogue Warriors, because they have the lockdown from Malzahar, they have good crowd control from champions like Jarvan, like Alistar, and Mouse can still go toe-to-toe against 957. But really, what do we see Rogue Warriors go towards next?
The perfect situation for WE would be kind of catching out one member, maybe Sleepy Trouble Bubble on one of the front lines, follow up that damage and a hook, and then Vladimir goes into the back line unopposed. That would be kind of the perfect situation for WE.
As you can see, Rogue Warriors now still trying to control that Baron pit, still trying to stay around this area. WE, they're not phased, they're just holding on, forcing Rogue Warriors to try and push for an objective. They are the ones that can sit back and relax for now. Rogue Warriors still have to try and press the issue, it seems.
Yeah, Rogue Warriors really wants full control over this Baron, but I don't feel like they're going to get much of it. WE has a lot of easy ways to kind of check the brushes here. The Kalista does have that Sentinel, and also if someone gets in trouble, she can always Fate call someone away. So Rogue Warriors expending a lot of resources on this Baron, but I feel like it's, it's something nice to do, but it's not going to net you a lot.
basically.
So how do Rogue Warriors net themselves a lot here? Because if they can't do Baron, where do they go towards? Because WE just sitting back at their turret saying, you know what, you guys got to fight us. You've got to
Like
dive
I said,
us.
like Rogue Warriors, they can scale. They can scale. All they need to do is basically say, okay, WE, don't 5v5 and win and don't get a complete wipe on us, and we'll be fine. If it comes to a late game 5v5 team fight, I would actually say Rogue Warriors has the upper hand. Mouse on that Cho'Gath, we've seen this counter pick because it can prevent Vladimir from getting into your backline. And if you look at W, who is really going to take the charge into Rogue Warriors' composition, it's going to be very difficult for a single tank like Thresh or Sejuani to really survive that.
But still no big 5v5 brawls besides the one dive in the mid lane from Rogue Warriors. Again, just setting up around the Baron buff, making sure they get good vision control, which Rogue Warriors have plenty of. Wards all down the mid lane. Vision control all on the blue side of Team WE's jungle. And as you've mentioned, Clement, Mouse on an island against 957. This is a matchup which goes even. Vladimir really good with his sustain, thanks to his kit. Cho'Gath, exactly the same, has a lot of sustain coming out from his passive. Lots of ways to deal with Vladimir in the side lane as well.
Rogue Warriors trying to force something, doesn't manage to get anything as Xia secures his own blue.
Kahlua going in with the flank engage. Xia's gonna fall. SMLZ gets that kill. Mystic will pull back his support, but a big pick for Rogue Warriors onto the mid laner.
And Kahlua somehow able to find an opening on the right side of the jungle. Sneaks past all the warding coming out from WE and makes the pick on Xie.
Kahlua still here as well. Will get spotted out. Locked down by Doinby. There's going to be a teleport coming in for the teleport. Big knockout cover Kahlua. And
Mystic
there
goes down.
Sharvan. SMLZ Arcade shifting over the wall as well. 957 getting locked down. He can't get the flank he wants to the Rogue Warriors. And 4 members strong will chase down this Vladimir. This is not the team fight that WE wanted to go for. This is a disaster for them, and Rogue Warriors open up the map.
They take 3 kills and instantly go for the Baron. Right there, W were hoping to make a pick on Kahlua, but Kahlua saved his ultimate. He didn't use it on the initial kill on Xie, so he was able to survive for so long and even get a triple knockup, which really cost Mystic his life.
Big tanky team fight from Rogue Warriors to kick that one off. They pick up the Baron buff as well. Now with the 5,000 gold lead, they must feel confident to push these structures against Team WE.
And let's look at that again. Kahlua finding his way over to the right side with that blast cone, gets Xie. Tons of burst damage coming out, and the last Q somehow able to tag him.
And it's important to talk about how they were able to set up for that, because we mentioned Rogue Warriors have been patient. They're not rushing for the Baron. They're just setting up vision, making sure they take their time. Kahlua got the flank because they had that vision control, locked him down, and then this happens, Clement.
Yeah, so they thought that Kahlua might not have his ultimate anymore, but Kahlua was still holding on to it. Flash Q and then knocks Mystic to his death.
Rogue Warriors on the back of this, able to clean up the team fight. 957 teleported in, was not able to get much done. Now with Baron buff, with the gold advantage, seems like they have their eyes set towards the bottom lane and mid lane inner turrets.
That was a good idea from 957. He understands that he needs to take out SMLZ by himself, kind of, but it didn't work out because the front line had already collapsed for WE.
And still sieging for this bottom lane turret. Ben still fishing for hooks. That's not going to work. They still have 957 split pushing, but there is no teleport available for Vlad. He is on his own at the moment, and Rogue Warriors are focusing on mid lane as well as bottom lane. This is a straight up 4-on-5.
Yeah, and 957 is kind of caught out in no man's land, not coming to the defense in time.
8 seconds is the recall timer. Vladimir finally gets back to base, but Rogue Warriors make short work of the mid lane inner turret. Mouse gets hooked back, and we will see Kahlua sent to sleep, but doesn't get damaged by the paddle star. Instead, so much damage on the mid lane inhibitor. SMLZ will get sniped up though. Good damage coming out from Sia. Still trying to keep the carries back from Rogue Warriors.
However, SMLZ does have sustain with that Blade of the Ruin King. In this next wave, they should just let him queue it up, and he will be back at full health. Skill shots on Cho'Gath don't mean anything.
But they lock down Vladimir. 957 will use Sanguine Pool fairly late, very low. Pops the stopwatch in the last second to avoid True Shot Barrage. But Java jumps in, forces the team fight at the Nexus turrets. Mystic's going to get some good spears in on the backlines. But MSOLZ, he is left untouched. He is now moving into backlines. Picks up one, goes for the second.
Perfect
comes
ace.
out big, and it's an ace coming out for Rogue Warriors. They tear apart Team WE.
Rogue Warriors with an absolute stomp right there, and it all started from the early game with Flawless. A clean victory over WE.
And a perfect game in there. Not exactly in the words of a perfect game, but still, it was phenomenal from Rogue Warriors tore Team WE apart from the early game and snowballed that into the lane.
There's only one mistake that Rogue Warriors made, and that was that 2v4 in the red side jungle of the enemy team. But aside from that, this was pretty much a perfect game coming out from Rogue Warriors. And a lot of it really has to go back to Flawless. Like I've said in the cast before, this is not the first time we've seen him go for this clear. Starts bottom side, starts his bottom blue, and then takes his wolf, paths back to the Gromp, and then goes into a gank. Gets the first 2 flashes out of WE's bot lane, and then they just collapse again with Doinby.
And that's where we said the focus would be. But we kind of expected Team WE to be the ones that turned on the heat. It was Rogue Warriors with the early game, especially on the back of Flawless. With all the advantages they have in the bottom lane, it seems like they read Team WE like a book from the draft phase almost.
And this really begs the question, can WE play an early aggressive bot lane composition and a mid lane composition at the same time? If you look at those damage graphs, Mystic was pretty much shut down, 3.9k damage.
Really close to Rogue Warriors' support damage in that match as well. I mean, Kahlua was at 3,000 on Alistar in the match. It really shows how much Team WE was shut down in that bottom lane. And again, all eyes on Flawless once again. This jungler for Rogue Warriors never fails to impress.
He takes away a ban in the draft phase. You're never going to give him Lee Sin. Still has the Jarvan up. And we have to talk about Rogue Warriors and their red side strategies right now because they've been so successful. They haven't dropped a single game. We've been seeing the same patterns from them over and over again. That Ezreal, that strong jungler, and then you counterpick for Doinby. Doinby did so much in the early game as a Malzahar, which is really surprising. And I felt like Shia might have read the lane incorrectly, shifting over to the left side and allowing Doinby to come down.
And he got the counterpick in the first draft rotation after Zoe was picked up early. Instead, it was really them giving over the final counterpick to Mouse, which, although we didn't see too much from him on the Cho'Gath, he was able to go toe-to-toe against 957 and was crucial in the strategy to keep Vladimir locked in that single lane.
That's just a huge Mouse trap. Do you ban his Gangplank? Because he's not exactly the best Gangplank in the world. He doesn't land all of his barrels, but at the same time, he's been so successful with it. So I actually don't think they're winning because of his Gangplank, but when you ban it out, you actually leave him... You lead him to pick other things which he's better on, which are tanks like Maokai and Cho'Gath.
And he was able to do well on that tank top side of the map. Rogue Warriors' impressive Game 1 victory over Team WE. Is this what we can expect from them moving into the next match?
This was super clean from them. We haven't really seen Rogue Warriors perform at this level, so I'm kind of hesitant. Are they going to keep it up? But I'm more interested in what WE are going to react to that.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how Team WE are going to be able to react to it. We've already heard from Indiana saying that she expected them to shut them down nice and early. Let's send it back to the desk to get their thoughts after game number 1.
Thank you so much, guys. And to be honest, the conversation really just started there, and very specifically with the Callista, as you were saying, 3,900 damage at the end of the game. That's abysmal. That's like a support's damage at the end of the game because it was completely shut down.
And what kills me is that Mystic has played this champion 24 times. He had a 58% win rate on the champion. So it's one of his most played. He should be confident playing the Callista. He got smashed by that matchup across from EDG, and he just gets blasted on the other end of it today. So I said at the very beginning that I wanted Team WE to play the fast push, for them to run the tempo and end this game before it came down to 5v5. WE didn't answer the call, but Rogue Warriors did. And they did it through attacking Mystic and Ben in that bot lane. And they are continuing to be just a giant liability right now for Team WE.
But that was the question, right? Like, why would you pick Callista here if you even set yourself up for the fast
Priority
push?
pick,
The
too.
priority, it was first to pick Callista. They went towards the Zoe anyway, and you're like, okay, perfect. But they didn't have the Caitlyn to go in for that recipe.
Yeah, and then the other cool thing is how this composition really works against Zoe. Like, who is Zoe going to pick as a target there? You have a Cho'Gath, you have an Alistar, you have a Malzahar. Clement talked about on... you know, the cast of why Malzahar works well into the Zoe. He's got the spell shield, he can absorb that, he can lock her down. And it's like, even if Zoe does get snowballed ahead and she does do that crazy damage that we know her to do, there's still not a lot of viable targets because that team is so tanky. Super safe pick with the Ezreal, you know, able to disengage with his Arcane Shift. So I like the fact that Rogue Warriors from minute 1 in their draft seem to have all of the answers.
And I want to go back to the fact that bot lane was exploited from WE, because that's what opened up the game. We're going to show a replay here, which was exactly that. Our RW managed to exploit the bottom lane, looking for that dive very early on. And from that point, there was nothing the bot lane from WE could do because they were non-existent. They were never going to be stronger than SMLZ.
And the reason why this all started was, of course, that incredibly creative pathing from Flawless. And I'm actually just happy that a team finally punishes Mystic and Ben, not running a minion dematerializer, so allowing a wave to get stacked up that heavily against them, allowing themselves to get ganked level 3 when they had trinket wards available. Like, yes, it is a cheesy path, but, you know, Flawless was still able to pull that off, and you need to expect that that is going to happen. So many times Mystic and Ben are such selfish players, like they will always be greedy. They will always extend, not just in their lane phase, but even post-lane phase, and it does open them up for punishment to get picked off like that, and so many teams don't ever take that that free grab there, and finally Rogue Warriors did. Now that's a strategy, though, that will only work once.
Well, once again, I have to go back and talk about what you said heading into this match, which was we need to see WE shut down Rogue Warriors before they get to teamfights. End in 25 minutes. Go for the fast push, knock down the turret, finish out the game. Pretty much what we saw from EDG yesterday, right, against WE. That's not what happened. The Rogue Warriors were allowed to get to those teamfights.
Yeah, and also on the flip side, it's always been the way to beat Team WE. I mean, for the longest time, I feel like I've been saying it for 2 years now since we've seen this roster of of Team WE. I'm like, just hit them in the early game. They don't play in early game. Just attack them in early game. Like, they play losing lanes or passive lanes, they absorb everything. And yes, Team W are actually very good at losing in kind of the sense
in
of
a graceful way.
Yeah, trading objectives, never just losing their entire map. It always feels like they get something. It's why they had that miracle, 50-minute game against EDG just the other day. But there's no excuse for this. It feels like Condi is the only element of their gameplay that even has an early game anymore. And when he's on something like Sejuani versus a Jarvan, and all of his lanes are losing, especially with an early game dive like that, there's not much that Condi can do to salvage that situation. It's just the same old Team WE, and I'm tired of just that broken record on the analyst desk. I'm tired of seeing the broken record of the same compositions and the same old problems.
But you have to be a broken record at the end of the day because it is the same thing over and again. But this coalesced into our last replay here, which was around the Baron. It was the team fight that Rogue Warriors managed to find, and this is what they were, basically everything turned into. This is them reaping their rewards for what they did in the early game.
And maximizing how their composition really works, and it's just all of their ability to find picks, to start fights, to be engaged tools. You have Malzahar, you have Jarvan, you have Alistar, and when you get ahead by making early game plays, by breaking an early game tower, by rotating around the map, then suddenly you have so many tools to force fights and then a gold lead to back it up. There was never ever going to be a situation that Team WE were going to win that game with that composition. When Kalista fell behind like that, she's never going to match Ezreal. She's the lowest DPM of any of the AD carries through itemization, and so you're basically just preying on, I hope Zoe's overpowered enough that she can carry us through this.
Yeah, and what we're getting at here is props to Rogue Warriors for being the team who managed to exploit them in the early game. A lot of this also came from the bottom lane, and specifically Kahlua, who will be picking up our MVP in this game, taking man of the match.
I'm super happy to finally see the rookie of Rogue Warriors pick up some recognition. I thought he was phenomenal on the Alistar. We've had some great alley performances today. Ming picked it up in the last series. Kahlua gets it this time around, and he's the only, unknown name on this roster, the unknown factor. And alongside a veteran like SMLZ, he showcased that you can give him the playmaking power. He was the guy that initiated that early game dive that started all of this.
Yeah, it's no longer Year of the Dog. It feels like Year of the Support right now because it really is the supports who are pulling their weight in this one. And for sure, Rogue Warriors, I kind of want to go off the back of what Clement was saying was, are Rogue Warriors going to keep it up now? Because that was great. But can you do it again, especially against WE? Because we said before heading into the set that this is the time to exploit WE. They have time to, head into Chinese New Year and recover, but now is the time to strike.
And unfortunately, I think that you can do it against Team WE simply because they haven't shown me any tape recently that they can learn from their mistakes and come back. If maybe this was after Chinese New Year, I might revamp on that because, again, I don't think that this strategy, that type of gank, level 3, is only going to happen once against an experienced team. That shouldn't happen again. But at this point, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think Team WE can figure out what's wrong with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's theorizing, right? So can they make that change between Game 1 and Game 2? We have to find out. We are going to take a short break before we look towards Game number 2.